So hello everyone, welcome back to another video and a slightly different video. Today I am back in Rock Over Tub and I figured that I would film a beginners techniques and moves video. So if you've recently started climbing or you've been climbing for a little while, you may be wondering if there are any quick fixes or little technique things that you can really be drilling in to help improve your overall movement on the wall and ultimately improve your climbing. So in this video, I thought I would walk you through some beginner climbing moves and techniques that you can practice if you're reasonably new to climbing or looking to improve your climbing grade as a beginner. And then in part 2 of this video, I'll move on to perhaps some more intermediate methods and moves that you may want to use if you've been climbing for a little bit longer. So it goes without saying I am not a coach, nor am I an especially amazing climber, but I have been climbing for a long time, so I've picked up these methods throughout my climbing and I use them all the time, and I find that generally it just makes my time on the wall a little easier. So we're going to start with footwork and talk a little bit about edging. So for that I'm going to need to grab a shoe, which doesn't smell too fresh, and the first thing we're going to talk about is edging. So edging is pretty straightforward. It's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's basically where you step on the edge of a hold with your toe, your foot. So you can use the inside edge of your shoe where your big toe offers more stability, or depending on which way you're trying to move on the wall, you can use the outside edge of your shoe. Your choice pretty much depends on which way and which direction you want to move off the hold and how you want to use the hold, and also maybe the surface area of the hold, how much you've got to work with. So the next technique that's going to help you a lot on the wall is smearing. Smearing is a method that you can use when you don't actually have a foothold on the wall, or maybe you want to be sneaky and use the texture of the wall to help you move upwards or sideways, depending on which way you're going. Smearing is something that you will often do on volumes, or like I said, when you don't have a foothold to work with, and it's effectively where you make the most out of the friction generated between the rubber on your shoe and generally a flat or angled wall. You'll often find that smearing is really useful in slab climbing or outside where you don't often have defined footholds like you do in the gym. You can also use a smear on steeper terrain and on overhangs to keep contact with the wall, but that will generally require more pressure through your toe, like really pressing your toe into the smear to maintain contact with the wall. Because the use of a smear isn't always the obvious way through a climb, and it generally requires a little bit more technique and a little bit more creativity with your route reading. Smearing is a really good beginner technique to get down, because once you have unlocked the smear, it will help you in a lot of situations where the footholds aren't exactly what you would like them to be. I use smears a lot. They're definitely a good one to have in your arsenal of climbing moves. So foot swapping is one of probably the first things that I learned as a climber to help me with my technique on the wall and to conserve energy. Foot swapping is pretty critical because it allows you to shift your centre of gravity in the way that you need to progress up the wall. Without using foot swaps, climbing is significantly harder. Like I said, it's one of the first things that I really started to hone in on and develop as a new climber. So this would be best illustrated in cutaways of me climbing, but effectively foot swapping is again exactly what it sounds like. It's the process of swapping your feet, so replacing one foot with the other foot to shift your centre of gravity one way or the other. So the easiest way to swap your feet on a hold is to leave space for the other foot to join whichever foot is currently on the wall and then swap it out that way, but sometimes you will find that the climbing hold you're trying to foot swap on is not big enough for 2 feet, so you need to kind of switch it up, and this is where a little bit more technique comes in. The aim is to hover the foot that you want to replace your current foot with above and to the side of the foot, and then roll the active foot off the foothold and replace the inactive foot on the foothold, and thereby it comes the active foot. hope you're enjoying the video so far, but time for a small ad break to have a word from the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. So you've heard me talk about Skillshare on this channel before. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can go and learn about pretty much anything that takes your fancy. I recently got myself landed with a week of self-isolation, so I was stuck in the house with my iPad and not a lot to do. So I decided to teach myself how to use Apple's drawing app Procreate to create some fun little illustrations, which I will put on screen now. I've recently just finished drawing people, creating unique and dynamic character poses in Procreate by Sarah Holiday. Honestly, I enjoyed this class so much. If you do take me up on the offer in the description below, then I would definitely recommend. If you're interested in drawing people or creating illustrations in Illustrator or Procreate, then I would 100% recommend this class. She taught me so much about the basic principles of drawing people, but in a way that I find really exciting and engaging. So the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description of this video will get a month's free trial of Skillshare Premium. So I'd encourage you to go and do that. I've really been enjoying using Skillshare classes. And now we'll get back into the footwork tips. I talked a little bit before about keeping balance on the wall, and a really good move to do this is to use a flag. Sometimes you'll be faced with a climb that only has a certain amount of footholds, and you may want to use a flag to make use of the wall and your balance to effectively create extra footholds. Another but similar move to flagging is stepping through. So again, that's very much what it sounds like. So stepping through is effectively using a free foot to step through your active foot, creating as many points of contact with the wall as you can and keeping yourself balanced by using opposing legs as counterbalance can be a really interesting way of unlocking climbs, and often is actually the intended beater. So the last move or technique that I'm going to finish with for beginner climbers is the rockover, which is fitting because I'm currently sat in rockover. The key to a rockover is transferring your weight from point A to point B, perhaps quickly, but you can do very slow rockovers where you kind of feel like you're on the wall forever before you find that point of balance and then moving on. So a rockover is effectively where you place your foot on a high foothold, generally out to the side, and then you transfer your weight sideways rather than exclusively upwards to maintain stability, and also to utilize the power in your legs, because ultimately your legs are a lot more powerful than your arms to move upwards. Whilst you do use your arms to keep you balanced and often to press you in the right direction, rockovers are pretty much all in your legs, and using a rockover well will mean that you can get perhaps a little bit of a rest on the wall, but also, like I said, generate power through those legs. So I hope that you enjoyed this techniques and moves video as a little bit of an introduction to some of the moves that you might find quite useful if you're new to climbing, or you might hear me talk about quite often in my videos and wonder what it is exactly that I am talking about. So I hope you found this useful and informative. Now I'm going to go for a session in this bouldering room behind me, which all looks pretty hard, and I'll see you in my next video.